Hello and welcome to In Pursuit of. Today's guest is Aditya KV, founder and CEO of Umoya Sports. Welcome back, Aditya.
Thank you.
Can play-based learning be scaled across diverse geographies and school systems?
Now that schools are talking about inclusion because of NEP, governments are talking about national education policy, they've started realizing that in order to create inclusive culture, it cannot happen in a maths class so easily. It has to happen in things for for the heart and the soul, like arts, music, sports. So there have been actually projects like government of Andhra Pradesh taking up where they wanted to build a funnel for building inclusion by starting a play program
Wow.
in the schools. And this is something it's not happening in silos, it is happening across. And this is something what I feel that how, and again through our own work in schools, working in inclusive schools, working in special schools, how sports actually are a great tool to build inclusive cultures, how children build empathy and leadership naturally. Right, and like we do these, like I will tell you an incident. Like we work with a school called Khushbu Welfare Society in Gurgaon. It's a special school. They had invited a mainstream school, KR Mangalam, to come to their school, get an exposure to disabilities, children, cultural exchange. Right, both the schools had planned, performed things. So they did like a dance show and everything. But there was still a bit of hesitation and an apprehension in children that intermingling was not happening. They said कि चलो dance करते हैं साथ में, but
They were dancing with their
they were
own.
dancing with their own groups, right? So then we were like कि चलो खेलना शुरू करते हैं. किस किस को खेलना है? Obviously, all the hands shot up, right? And then we started play program, and then we made buddy system, and they were like कि आपको नहीं करना है, आपको help करना है, आप team है, जो जीतेगा as a team जीतेगा. And then when we started playing all these activities, it just changed. And after that, when they started the dance thing again, it was a different group. So that kind of thing, I feel we need those exchanges, we need those kind of programs more. And absolutely, I feel sports, and we have enough examples. Schools like Amar Jyoti, where we work with, schools like Balwant So there are so many such schools working in Delhi, working in inclusion through inclusive schools, and having a strong sports program. And I think those are the things which need to be scaled.
Right.
And it just supports the teacher.
Right.
Idea is that we need to reduce the pain points for a school and the teacher, and then the entry barriers are reduced. Most of the apprehensions come from a school angle is like, हम इनको कैसे संभालेंगे, ये कैसे होगा, वो कैसे होगा. There's so many of these questions, but nothing is rocket science.
Right.
And if you reduce the barriers, the entry barriers, and you show these examples of how it actually helps a life of a teacher,
Right.
where you create peer system, where the teacher does not have to support a child with disability. It is the friend who's supporting a child with disability by themselves.
Right.
What is happening on the field,
Right.
of what I shared, needs to be translated into a classroom. And then a child, and this is what is happening in inclusive schools, the schools which I mentioned, of mainstream schools, neurotypical children, supporting children with disabilities in day-to-day activities. Simple. Bag से किताब निकालना, खाना रखना, playground में साथ में खेलना. And I feel those are some of the things which just needs to kind of like become more systemic as a program, as a programmatic system. And then it is just time that I think it is, and it is easy because on the playground, it is easier to do.
Yes.
Because all we have to do is manage the energies of the children. And that spent energy, the channeling of the energy into a positive will happen in a classroom.
That's right.
And that is something which I feel is going to really build more inclusive culture in schools, communities, everywhere.
No, absolutely. But I also understand the government has laid out a very amazing inclusion policy, and also the laws for pro-disability
Absolutely.
are pretty strong. But I think the real issue is, again, in
Is the
application.
implementation.
When you said the Andhra government has already started this program, have other state governments also started it?
Conversations have happened, but even that was a pilot. We were part of the pilot. Unfortunately, we are not sure of like how it has translated it. But I feel even the intent or even the thought process lays a foundation
Yes.
to create those systemic changes as a countrywide, as a policy-wide, and India has a good, strong policies. Obviously, there are gaps here and there, and I think it will keep on happening. But it is even the ability to take a starting step is the good thing. The problem what happens is like in schools, like even they say कि like हम children with disabilities को ले रहे हैं, they take only the mild ones. But the ones who are a little advanced or who have higher support, they are always getting left out. And they tend to can then always go to a special school.
Because they possibly, at this moment, like you said, the teachers are not trained.
Absolutely, they're scared. There are no special educators. Thankfully, their special educators are increasing. But then
I think there's supposed to be a special educator in each school,
Yeah.
but the teachers are not trained to tackle with sensitivity.
Yes.
So it's still complicated. Just
So I
one
think
of those things.
I think it's not just like one single approach.
I'm just thinking right now, when we are saying that teachers aren't trained to tackle children with disability, they're not trained to tackle very extremely smart, gifted kids either. So it's like, they're not trained to tackle anything which is not in the norm.
Yeah.
Right?
It's always
So,
that like in an education, like in a classroom, you always work for the middle.
Yes.
You always work for the middle. You kind of like the children who are above the curve or below the curve, they will always kind of like be left out.
Yes, absolutely.
And even the stories that we see in our system, it is the system celebrates the stories which have won beyond the system, in spite of the system. It's not the system
shouldn't
really
be the other
supporting,
way. It should-
which really should be the other way around. So we need to change that. We need to kind of like say ki like because of the system they have come up.
Absolutely.
It's not in spite of the system they kind of like have.
Very well put, really. Okay, so Aditya, tell me that talking about educators, how do you at Umoya Sports train educators to embrace inclusiveness and how to be more inclusive, how to work with children, with disabilities?
So we work right now primarily with the primary teachers or Anganwadi teachers. We are yet to work with high school or middle school and senior secondary school because if we are able to set the culture right at the foundational years, it just translates later.
Yes.
And I feel it becomes easier from a early childhood learning outcomes or from a Anganwadi. So we actually have a train-the-trainer program which talks about how using purposeful play we can integrate the various skills that the teacher is already planning for or working towards for a child in a classroom.
Right.
And then we also say कि अब आपके क्लास में ऐसे बच्चे तो होंगे ही, ये छोड़ दो, like let's not label them कि ये disability हुई है, कोई भी हो सकता है, मतलब किसी को बॉल कैच नहीं करना आ रहा है या किसी को नंबर्स नहीं समझ में आ रहे हैं, जरूरी नहीं है कि वो सिर्फ दिव्यांग बच्चा है, वो कोई एक न्यूरोटिपिकल भी बच्चा है, उसको शायद नहीं आ रहा होगा.
Absolutely.
तो आप खेल के माध्यम से कैसे कर सकते हैं? So that essentially changes the mindset for them to say कि this is doable. Otherwise उनको लगता है कि ये और काम आ गया हमारे लिए.
Correct.
So essentially the first step for us is to say कि आपका काम आसान कर रहे हैं, तो वो हम उनको वो सपोर्ट करते हैं. So we conduct train-the-trainer programs, we provide them curriculum, we provide them the various other supports, provide the support systems with the fundamental idea of how you can use play
Right.
to build inclusion and to also achieve your classroom outcomes.
Very nice. Very nice. I was also thinking that when it's at that level, at the level of the Anganwadi educators or the pre-primary, you also catch things at that age.
Absolutely.
Because you're trained for it.
You're trained for it. And this
So
is the
you're
other thing
looking for
also.
it.
Like we also teach them the basic red flags and the orange flags कि ये अगर दिख रहे हैं आपको बच्चों में, तो आप उनको बोलो यहाँ जाने के लिए.
Right.
And like
Because if it's caught early, so many things can be managed.
early intervention is such a big thing. Like many of our children are actually, unfortunately, they who could be even their learning progress could have been on a different trajectory if they would have probably been identified early. Most of them go saying to a doctor कि sir ये सुन नहीं रहा है, बोल नहीं रहा है. But there could be something else. It is not that he has just a ear problem. It's not just that they have challenges with their speaking ability or listening ability. It could be something else. And then parents find out. But then unfortunately वो change हो जाता है.
And then it's very hard. Then therapy becomes very hard.
So that is the other vertical, the other aspect within the train the trainer program, where we kind of like build sensitivity, build some understanding about them, understanding. And you know, it's interesting. So we were conducting a training program in partnership with UP government in Ayodhya. They already have elements talking about developmental milestones, disability, everything.
Seriously.
They do have that. So that like the training program actually had all those things. So we were brought in as external support trainers for them. And when we brought it through play, उनको ज़्यादा चमका. Unfortunately, all these teachers, primary teachers, they go through training, so many trainings, कि वो ट्रेनिंग सुनते ही उनका वो माइंड शिफ्ट वो ब्लॉक हो जाता है. वो बोलते हैं अरे यार एक और ट्रेनिंग. सो वी ऑल्सो ट्राई टू काइंड ऑफ लाइक अवॉइड सेइंग कि ये ट्रेनिंग है, हम सोच रहे हैं कि हम
खेलना है. Nice. So, Aditya, what's your take on the intersection of disability rights and mainstream education policy?
I feel absolutely like, I think I will go a little step ahead also. It is at the end of the day, building an agency for a child to become an independent, successful in their own terms, right? And essentially the idea is education becomes a very core aspect to build that agency for a child with disability. There's this child who's his Ayush. He's a person with spinal cord injury. The school is quite supportive to the level where like they brought the class only for him they got the class down and everything.
Wow.
But now imagine that he is actually going to represent India in this wheelchair ultimate. The school actually said कि हम आपको 10% fees का waiver दे रहे हैं क्योंकि आप school कर.
Amazing.
It is not just that like it's right obviously, but it is how everything gets woven into it, and then he actually has an ability to now access the basic right to education. And obviously they come from a low income family, it just makes the thing easier for the parent.
Yeah.
And now actually his dad is actually known in the in the thing by saying Ayush ka parent hai. So it is also like a proud moment for a parent. And I think these are some of the things which are happening in silos, and they need to kind of like just become mainstream.
When you design your program, how do you ensure that the students, your students, their voices are heard and taken into account while designing the program?
It's a two-way thing. On the program team, the coaches, is like they are well trained now they understand the child first. It's always a child first approach. So they understand the children, they understand the skill sets they have, they understand the limitations, they understand what they can do, what we do not have. And then we create programs according to each level. So like within one class of, let's say, sports period, where there are 3 different kind of levels of activities that are going according to the disabilities also, because we have multi-disability in some schools. So we have a visual impairment, speech and hearing impairment, locomotor, intellectual and developmental all together. So how do you create a program? So these are some of the adaptations. So we also have a well laid out framework, methodology, pedagogy that we use, which actually helps us to create this curriculum. The other thing is by obviously observing the child. Right. And learning the child. And then we have another thing in this. Like one is like a lot of times we start with an activity. But children being children, they start doing something else. And then वो इतनी बढ़िया एक्टिविटी हो जाती है कि अब उसको हमारी एक्टिविटी बना लेते हैं. तो एक एक्टिविटी थी जिसमें हमें बेसिक वार्म अप था कि बच्चों को एक कोन को टच करना है, फिर वहां जाके कुछ और करना था, फिर वापस आना था. वो बच्चा वो कोन से इतना फैसिनेट हो गया कि उसने सर पे रखा, मुंह पे रखा, ये सब करे. तो फिर वी एक्चुअली क्रिएटेड डिफरेंट स्टेशन. हमने हर जगह कोन लगा दिया. आपने बोला कि अब आपको ये कोन पे ये करना है, ये करना है, ये करना है, ये करना है. तो वी काइंड ऑफ लाइक क्रिएट दीज एक्टिविटीज
on the go sometimes.
And also now we structure it. We're like, ये करो ना, बच्चों को मजे आएंगे, मजे आ रहे हैं ना, तो ये करो ना. So we kind of like also like those are some of the elements what we do. And then we also now, because we have a lot of adults with disabilities in our program who, and this is the other thing what we do. So along with education, as an organization, we work on two verticals: education, and the other is livelihood.
Okay.
The livelihood is a very new vertical for us right now. So what we have realized is, over the years of our working, there were a lot of these athletes, youth with disabilities, who have played for so many years.
Sure.
They've built an expertise in their sports and they think from a very long time, but they never had an opportunity to give it back or build a career in it.
Right.
I am a passionate sports person, so I had the opportunity of running Umoya. But how many people with disabilities who have been athletes are able to build a career in it? So
Right.
now what we have started doing is we've started hiring these people with disabilities, creating an incubator program. So essentially what is happening is, these athletes with disabilities have their own experience, and then they kind of like mentor young children with disabilities using their experience. So cutting short their learning for a child with disability. And those are some of the systems that we pick in between to create our programs.
Very nice.
So it essentially is like a end-to-end stack model kind of a thing what we are creating, which essentially helps a child journey from a young age through their education program, supporting them through their youth, through their opportunities, building their confidence, giving those agencies of building their own everything, continuing to the adult life, where we have pathway for them to kind of like build sports as a career.
Very nice.
So essentially, starting from a young child, supporting the parents, the teachers through our education programs, building, empowering children with disabilities through our direct programs, and then through the whole process of supporting them. And then a child comes us at any stage in their own career. It could be a young child, it could be a youth, it could be an adult. But then we essentially have a pathway for them at their own life. While we are hoping that we are able to work with a young child through the entire curve, but we have these stack model which kind of like says that you're a 16-year-old child with disability, why don't you mentor a young child with disability, or you play your own sport and kind of like participate, or an adult, build a career in sports.
Very nice. What is that one partnership that transformed Umoya's reach or philosophy?
I would say every partnership, but because every partnership has played a very critical role in our own journey. It could be the first school that, where it was Khushbu Welfare, which kind of like said कि like आपका concept हमें अच्छा लग रहा है, आइए आप हमारे स्कूल में काम करना शुरू करिए. We're still working with Khushbu in like since 2018, one of the like longest partnership for us. But that laid the foundation for us to say कि यार, it is a problem to solve for.
Right.
There are schools which are interested. So that gave us a proof of concept. And then the schools like Action for Autism, where using the schools, they are one of the most best practices that we have learned from that school. Every school partnership has its own thing. Astha, another organization, we have been a very long partners of Astha. Understanding communities is something what we have learned from them. We partnered with UNESCO. I will say every funder has played a great role, but if I have to name few, I will say Tech Mahindra has been like one of the most supportive partner to understand that how sports is beyond a classroom in a child life of a child. Then the other partnership is Social Venture Partners, SVP hai, and they have like the support system that we get from them. Then there's multiple partners, Upadhyay, UIA, Ujjwal Impact Advisors. So like every partner has its own support system that they have given us. And I think I really say that it's only because of them we survive or we are here. Obviously, we have the raw passion, raw energy, raw everything. But then having that guidance and that mentorship is the real thing which actually has helped us grow over these years, pillar to pillar. So, yeah.
So, Aditya, tell me, what does the future of inclusive education look like to you?
It's as good as like the same thing for you or for me. It should not be different. Probably the only thing need to change are the accommodations.
Right.
If you can, probably not being able to see far off. You will be just brought to the front of the class.
Yes.
It's as simple as that to changing the accommodation. So it's not really different. And it is those simple things what we need to understand what a child requires.
Right.
And how can we create a better support system for him or her in a classroom
Right.
are the pillars of inclusive education or for education. They need not be having a separate thing called inclusive education.
Yes.
It is education. You don't have a boy education and a girl education or some other education or some other education. Education is education. And I think those are some of the small steps, I think, in that is the future, where we don't even see the need for Umoya, where every school is equipped, every society is equipped, every community member is equipped. Obviously, like you need teachers, you need to have teachers who are there. But we don't, and that is the essentials of what I see as a bright future for like for us, for the community and for the society, that there are no barriers. People are not judged. They are not viewed them as a charity. They are viewed them as for the talent that they have, for the potential they have.
Right.
And it is just the same way like how you have Olympics and Paralympics.
Right.
You cannot ask like who climbs a tree faster, whether it is a fish or a monkey or a tiger or a lion. You need to have that, the same thing, that you need to be able to kind of like evaluate children, monitor the children on the potential that they have. We need to go beyond numbers, the marks. We need to go beyond that. We need to really kind of like really understand the purpose of education.
Right.
And then understand some children probably will have certain skill sets and some children will not have those skill sets. Then how do we support a child so that they can kind of like have their own, they can have their own success in whatever the way they do.
Right.
And how do we do it? So essentially, all these special schools, the centers that are run for different disabilities, I think the mainstream schools, the neurotypical schools need to kind of like take in the learnings from these schools. And right now the other challenge is also like inclusive education or the schools for children with disability, the education is spread across three verticals, three ministries. It is in Department of Education, Department of for people with disabilities. So it's like spread across multi-disability. So it needs multi-disability to like kind of like everything to one and like not have any separate. The support systems can be separate. The methodologies are separate. As you have a child who is low on maths, low in support needs in English or some subjects, is the same thing. Like what are they able to do for other activities? I think that is the simple thing of what I see as inclusive education.
Nice. So, and what has been the most surprising thing that maybe one of your students has taught you?
We learn so much from children, and especially from children with disabilities and the special needs. I'll actually quote the recent movie of Sitare Zameen Par of Amir Khan, where like one of the school teachers actually tells Amir Khan कि ये जो बच्चे होते हैं वो घर को जवान रखते हैं, फैमिलीज को जवान रखते हैं, यंग रखते हैं, एनर्जी ला के रखते हैं, बिकॉज दे आर सो प्योर. They are not polluted by the world around.
True.
They don't want ये कपड़ा, ये वो, कुछ नहीं. Their thing is very simple needs. Like they believe in the Maslow's law, which says like basics in life.
Yeah.
And I think that is what is the biggest learning. And this is something which we always discuss in our team. कि यार कितनी simple है, हम कितनी complicate करके करते हैं. I think more than we think that we are giving, it's like what we are receiving in return from our children, we are learning from our children is something which at the end of the day makes us a better person on a daily basis. So yeah.
Lovely. Thank you so much for being with us, Aditya. Pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for inviting.
I really hope that, that tomorrow, just like the RTE has made social inclusion, mandatory and the norm in, regular schools, I hope, tomorrow we will have the same kind of inclusion for disabled children as well. On that note, see you soon. Keep watching In Pursuit of.